evening in Western Sydney, and Daggy Barney are back with you to look back at round one, or the second half of round one, of National Rugby League action. What's going on?
It's 7 o'clock. It's still bloody 30 degrees.
I know.
Just
It's sweat, actually.
Oh, yeah. Pretty good weekend. Back in the grind, really. Some of those games were a grind to get through.
Different gravy to the first week, I'll be honest.
Wasn't it? Yeah. In between some patches of very exciting, very good football, there was a lot of grinding nothingness to go along with it. So,
yes, I guess the phrase chalk and cheese is probably apt to
100%
to describe that. It was, and I don't know what we learned. I don't know. Some of these games, I think you need to give 2 or 3 weeks to see just what the form means.
Yeah, basically line up a few of these teams as if they were in another trial match, realistically, because it looked like that's what they were doing. But I think we learned a couple of things, just more around defensive structures and the way teams want to play their football. But
well, speaking of want, we will obviously talk about when we get there, but I don't think you can trust the Dragons form line. So
it's looking like that.
They put together a good trial against the Tigers, which we didn't know really what to take of it, and pulled the same rein on the Titans. Again, in fairness, maybe we don't know what to take of it until we see the Titans again as well, given
it is round one, yes.
Covered themselves in glory at all in pre-season, really. News. We'll get to all of that. Anything that really caught your eye apart from, we'll go through the obvious headlines?
Not 100%. The Titans' attack seemed to disappear completely, which was
no foreign, I guess, but yeah, it
doesn't help. But
good.
They didn't really look like they were threatening to break the line pretty much for the entirety of the game, apart from a couple of nice runs here and there. There's questions around a few different teams' fitness, which obviously we'll get to as well. Going through, there's a few of them dropped off alarmingly, but the attacking play seemed to be really reined back from the majority of the sides this weekend. They were more than happy to tuck the ball under the wing rather than let it go and sing it around the park. So
I wonder if the fear of the dropout or not has changed any attacking flair. Not that it should have, but even teams were happy, and we'll talk, it was particularly Penrith and Warriors, they never really fired shots.
Kick short, just run it into a corner.
They were happy to run to the corner. Sean Johnson did play for a few repeat sets, but there's never anything beyond what you'd call round one footy, so I'm not writing off any team just yet, but no, there wasn't a great deal of attacking flair from a few teams. I know, systems and different pre-seasons or whatever have to play out, but yeah, from that point of view, it was, I thought, interesting, or at least a talking point. As you said, fitness of a couple of teams was quite noticeable. Lack thereof in some.
Yes.
A couple of teams were cramping up about the hour mark, which was.
And Supercoach was an absolute fucking nightmare. I think the average was below 1,000, which you very rarely see in any week. But the majority of these big names that were targeted, I'd say about 70% of them fell through.
Yeah. And I saw the high score was 1,200 and change. 219, I think it was.
Very good
and it was a nice team. It was a very nice pod team, but
not a team you would expect to be punching out 1,300.
No, but look, I'm all for it. If that's going to be the trend, we're all going to maybe have to play it out to different paths. We've had such a year of. It's funny, Supercoach, because we've talked about it, but the number one draft pick every year seemingly goes missing the year after. So we've seen it with Cody Walker, we've seen it with Teddy in the past, and
Tommy, yeah.
So we'll see if that plays out with Nico or Nathan Cleary in the next few weeks, I guess. The big news, I suppose. We'll just get rid of injuries first, but not a heap. No Munster again this week, or Nelson from Melbourne. Ray Stone, HIA. Connor Lemueli for the Dolphins will miss 4 weeks with an MCL. No serious injury to Fox, but he's on the reserves this week. Wade Egan's been named. I haven't seen an update. Tupanilla's been named. I haven't seen an update. So
haven't heard anything about either of them, but it's interesting that they've been named.
And Jai Arrow, unfortunately, has succumbed to a rotator cuff, I believe, which could be anything at this stage. At least 4 could be.
Best case 4, it could be the season.
Yeah, so I guess from an injury point of view, we'll watch and see how that pans out. And all the judiciary news was from the fines, barring the obvious one, where Spencer Leniu was found guilty of racial
Vilification. I guess.
vilification. I was trying to get the word there. 8 weeks after pleading guilty. So they essentially went in and tried to plead for some leniency. Didn't get it. Any thoughts on that?
It's about what I expected. I think the question was asked last week. I said anywhere between 6 and 10 was where I thought they'd land. More than likely around the 8-week mark. It's interesting when you put it up against a few other things. Obviously, a decade ago, you get a 10 grand fine, and that was about it. But who was it last year? Got done for a homophobic slur and got 4 weeks.
Yes,
so
it was last year's year before. Yeah,
is that twice as bad, or you wouldn't think so? You'd think they should be somewhere around the mark. But I don't blame the NRL. I actually applaud them for the stance they've taken. If this is now the benchmark where it's 8 weeks for that kind of slur, then as a minimum, then yes, so be it. But
yeah, if this is the, I guess, new
precedent,
then fair enough, I suppose. Obviously, if he didn't say it, he wouldn't have got suspended.
No.
There was a few different arguments about what was said on both sides. You can read all of that in all that's been discussed ad nauseum in all the media. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes it a bit difficult. The Broncos came out and denied it straight away, whereas obviously the Roosters did not, and then continued on for a couple of days before he turned around and apologised.
Realistically, I would have thought some reading between the lines that some Roosters officials may have just had a tap on the shoulder and said, look, we're not getting out of this one. Probably best to...
I don't understand, to be honest, why the first thing wasn't by a Rooster official going to him and going, okay, mate, what did you say? Like, did you racially vilify him? No. Okay, what did you say? Oh, I said this. Well, that is exactly what that is, mate. We need to put you through some, training or whatever.
Well, Len News evidence was that he didn't realise how bad what he said was until the next day, and once he understood, then...
Still took him another couple of days afterwards, which is interesting, but... Apparently now the whole squad's going to go through some sensitivity training, so we'll see what comes of that. But
okay, well, I'm sure someone else is going to make money off that, so good luck to them. Sad outcome for, well, shouldn't have been sad. I applaud the NRL, as you said, but hopefully they all learn from it, I would suggest. Anything else out of the weekend? There's no other big signing news or anything. Really? So we may as well get into it.
I heard that Tadavano injured himself.
Oh, he did. So new signing for the Bulldogs. I believe he's going to miss the close of the season. One of the PCL or ACL. Yeah. And there's another training incident I can't think of right now. Anyway, we will get to the first game, and it kicked off on Friday evening with the first surprise for many.
Thursday even.
Even Thursday. 28-12. The Canberra Raiders just out-muscled the Knights. What stats did you come up with here?
Didn't they what? 2 tries to 5, 2 out of 2 conversions for Newcastle, 3 out of 5 for Canberra. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for the Canberra side. A sin bin for Canberra, 68% completion for Newcastle, 90% for Canberra. It was 6-8 at half-time. 53 plus post-contact metres for Canberra, 4 line breaks apiece, 27 tackle busts for Newcastle, 23 for Canberra, 7 offloads to 10, 348 plus kicking metres for Canberra. 399 tackles played, 326. 15 errors.
348 more metres, you mean?
Sorry? Yes, 348 plus kicking metres for the Canberra side.
Okay, good.
Yep. 399 tackles played, 326. 15 errors to 7. 6 penalties conceded from both teams. A ruck infringement from both sides. And an inside the 10 against both sides. Supercoach points. Zach Hoskins with 92. Albert Hopawate was 79 and Tyson Frizzell was 74.
Hoskins was one of the first we highlighted on our much too early Supercoach preview, but our concern was where he fit.
Pricing, yeah.
If you knew you were going to get 70 or 80 minutes out of him, you'd probably worth the gamble, but you also didn't know.
I think that's exactly what we said. If he's getting more than an hour, then you'd be going with him.
Once Whitehead's back, and obviously Smithy's stoked a fair claim as well.
And you've got what's his name, Redhead Horsburgh to come back.
Horsburgh to come back as well. So there's a bit to play out there. They've both got. Well, he's going to have 3 weeks anyway to.
I'd imagine he keeps a bench spot just off the back of that.
So no doubt about it being a 17. It's just
40 minutes is probably not enough for the price that is.
Exactly. That being said, what do you take away from this?
Yeah, it was a decent game. It took a little while to get going. Canberra was really struggling with their running metres for the first probably 15 minutes of this game. Newcastle just seemed to be making metres at will. with at the start of this game, but not being able to, deliver that blow to really blow the line open. They were just bending it constantly, making sort of 15, 20 metres each hit up and shifting the ball from side to side. And they had Canberra on the back foot for, that first 10 to 15 minutes. They made way too many mistakes, Newcastle, and in crucial times, whether it be in attacking zones and then the attack completely falls apart due to an error, or trying to come out of their own end and making errors and turning the ball over to Canberra. So they really shot themselves in the foot. They were one of those teams that they seemed a little bit unfit towards the back end of this game as well. And not real keen on the physicality when the big front rowers came back in for their second stint as well. So those question marks that we have had around that pack is probably was shown up a little bit, I think, in this one.
Agree. I thought they weren't helped by how much Canberra lay all over the ruck. And
no, that didn't help at all.
They just noticeably slowed down ruck speed from what we saw week one, which obviously didn't help. But as you said, the errors and execution from Newcastle were very poor. And as you said, at key times in both attack and defence.
Canberra could have scored off their first attacking kick. Like realistically, Hopewadi went up for a catch above Ponga, and they both missed it. And it's rolled around on the floor. And lucky that Hopewadi got a hand on it. Otherwise, that would have been a Canberra try. And there was another one not that long after. Fogarty kicked them to pieces. Realistically, his kicking game was sublime. When in poor field position, just reefing it down the field, down the other end. And every time they were in attacking position, these kicks were like his first 3 or 4 were a bit rusty, and I thought, oh shit, this isn't going to help Canberra at all. And then they were pinpoint from that period on, from about that hour on. No trials, But from about the 20-minute mark till the end of the game, his kicking was sublime, especially in attacking position.
And there wasn't really an answer to it. I don't think they have a decision to make, Newcastle, because from a two-pronged point of view, is trying to get. I don't think they can run playing Cogger as a small forward or Crossland as a 4-4. They had a large chunk of the game that had Gamble, Hastings, Cogger, Crossland all on the field. And Crossland made nearly 60 tackles.
I reckon Crossland for 40 minutes you could get away with it. But Coggers has to play in the halves.
And not against a pack like Canberra. I think that was just noticeable. They got monstered. They couldn't afford to not have an extra body out there of that size. And I think they're trying to obviously appease all parties, but at some point they're going to have to make a decision.
Made a horrendous error too with that big kick out on the full. That was where the momentum for mine really shifted in this game, was that the kicking off his own 40 metres, going for a 40-20 and then putting it out on the full. And then that's when Canberra really upped the tempo and started to bash through the middle of the Newcastle side.
Papa, he looked fit. He looked fresh and fit. And
didn't he what?
If he's not playing Origin now, if he's committed and going to play, and he only played 35, 40 minutes, but
he probably going to put out more than Tapane, who had a pretty good shift as well.
He could actually end up being the one that starts off the bench if they want to go down the path of getting Horsburgh into the team, and they'd be happy to play half hour with Horsburgh.
20 minutes either side.
Yeah, that might be one way to get him in. But that being said, if he's setting up as a base for the rest of this pack, they were physical, and it's the obvious blueprint. They were better than physical. They were fantastic, I thought. Tapane was as good as he usually is, and I really liked, to quickly touch on Hoskins, but got through a lot of work, and Smithies got through a heap of work as well. I think it took him a while to get used to what he was doing, but his second half was absolutely outstanding.
Well, his early first contact in defence was a little bit iffy, and they were sort of standing up a bit too tall and getting sort of pushed back a bit, where he really started driving that shoulder in at around the half-time mark, and he started dropping blokes.
The back end, he was real good. He was fantastic.
Hosking was just setting up beautiful running lines on that right edge, which we said would be an advantage. Obviously, something that they missed with the two line runners on both sides. Hudson Young had a fantastic game, and if he didn't get 10 in the bin for putting a forearm and a shoulder into Ponga's head off the ball, then he probably would have gone close to man of the match. But
by the way, it was very Ricky to say that was soft. It was very naive. It was late and high and easily deserved 10 minutes. I was lucky not to be more.
Absolute brain snap. Just took a shot, saw him open and went, I can hurt him here, and tried to hurt him. Didn't fully commit, but he put a decent shot on him off the ball, which was stupid. There was a couple of questionable decisions in most games this weekend, but that Leo Thompson crusher for mine, I don't know how the hell that ever gets called as a crusher. The bloke drops his head down to about 2 foot off the ground and is boring with his head into the guy's hips. What are you meant to do?
Exactly.
Let him go and try to tackle him again?
Yeah, and we saw it last year, a few like that, but there were some. If we're saying the ref A teams were in the first 2 games, the standard refereeing across this whole round was quite poor, I thought.
And the no try with the Ponga break from fullback. I know Frizzell's shouldn't be in front of the ball, but Levi ran straight into him. Let's be honest.
Yes,
Levi did not try to take a different angle.
The defensive decision was to run into Tyson Frizzell.
Yeah,
That was the only
exactly.
decision.
Like if that was the best angle to run to get to Ponga, but he left it till that point to try and make that effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if he could have gone earlier, he could have waited and gone a fraction later and gone either side of Frizzell.
And he wasn't catching him.
He wasn't getting near him.
The other.
And yeah, I think they applied a bit more common sense to that last year than this one. But
it was
the big one was the fact that he was in front of the ball when it happened. So to the letter of the law, that's what it is.
I have concerns about Newcastle because you go back a year, you go back 18 months, and we were talking about them in terms of one of the worst 4 teams in the comp. You go back to the first 6 rounds, O'Brien was a week away from getting sacked. They won 9 in a row, got the confidence, got a hot streak. They now have to get back there, and there wasn't a great deal here that had me thinking, oh, we can see where they're heading. But like I said in the trial, they're a little bit, because they're such a fast tempo, quick execution team, sometimes that does take a few weeks.
Well, they're going to need, probably a month of fitness into them.
Before those real quick switch of play, Hastings, Ponga.
They did show a few times, like they got close to breaking open the line with Gay Guy and Frizzell on that right edge.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned Frizzell, but he was the one that did stand up.
He was brilliant. Yeah, Frizzell was probably close to the best player for the first 50 minutes of this game. Yep. Sort of back end a little, not as good, but he was brilliant. And they showed a few signs around Marzu and Bradman Best on the left-hand side as well.
For the whole 80 minutes, Marzu was probably Newcastle's best
He's just
player.
a war machine now, isn't he?
When they were bashed out, even when they were bashed out of the game, he was the one dragging them back.
And he wants to run it front row.
2 and 3 blokes, and pinballing off and keep going. Yeah. So I thought he was Newcastle's best, actually, him and Frizzell.
Yep.
Anyone else you want to touch on?
Well, Newcastle probably tried to play with the ball too much towards the back end of this game, rather than settling down and going, okay, they're trying to take us through the middle. They just continued to try and push that ball wide, and it just ended up with errors. It really shot him in the foot. I mentioned Gay Guy, Marzu. Ponga had a decent game. He was busy. Didn't pull it apart the way that he could have. I thought Elliott put in a pretty good shift. One that you could mention. We mentioned pretty much everyone else. Young and Hoskins were fantastic. Fogarty, for mine, was the difference in this game.
The other one that I'm going to make a case for, and I thought he was great, was Danny Lever. I thought he was at his he was very busy. He was picking the right. He's obviously had to try there, but picking the right times to run. But I thought he just had his.
He was on about 9 Supercoach points after about half an hour, and I'm like, how the fuck is he on 9 Supercoach points? He's been chasing the ball all day.
Yeah,
he's been making tackles.
I know he half cramped up, half tore something, but if he had played the game out, he's the other one I would have actually
scored a nice little try there with
in the consideration.
Went one way and then beat him on the inside.
I really liked what I saw from him, and he looks a great fit for this Canberra forward pack.
Yeah, for a tough the way they play their footy.
Yeah.
Front row was brilliant, as you mentioned, and so was Smithies. But I gave Fogarty 3 points. I thought his kicking game was the difference, and they don't win without him.
Yep.
There was a few individual efforts from the outside backs, like Hopewadi had some really lovely touches, was very busy, and looked like breaking them open a couple of times, and so did Tomoko.
You've got to mention Savage as well. He was
finished fantastically.
Rocks and diamonds, but he had his back half of the game was very good. He actually looked very dangerous at times. Yeah. Once they got tired.
And Tomoko looked strong carrying the ball, beat a few players one-on-one, but didn't really get into the backfield for the majority of it. Yeah, I had Fogarty 3, I had Hoskins with the 2, and then I either went with Hudson Young or Frizzell for the 1.
I had Smithies for 1. Smithies 2, actually, Hosking 1, but I'm happy to flip that. And also, I really wanted to give the honour mention to Levi, as I said. But, so let's go with
Go with Smithies for one. Hoskins 2 with the try and a try assist.
And Fogarty 3.
Yep.
Canberra, you like what you saw?
Absolutely. Whether it holds up for the whole season, playing that kind of football for the entirety of the season is going to be very hard to continually put in that effort-based week in, week out, without a couple of games where they can, sort of just go through the motions and have their backs winning them a few games. Which, don't get me wrong, there's a few talented outside backs there that might win them a few games here and there, but if they have to rely on playing that style of football, they're going to be more of a 50-50 shot than anything
Maybe
else.
the upside is that once they get deeper in the season, they can rotate those forwards and give...
Yeah, they've got a bit of depth there. Well, they've got a lot of depth, actually, in the big players.
Or Hosking a week off, or keep Whitehead fresh, whatever it might need to be. So, I think of when we talk about,
Their stocks have definitely risen, though.
rising stocks, I think they're the ones, and obviously we'll get to the Dragons later. But first of all, we've got to get 16-12 Sharks over the Warriors in an odd game, because even for the last 20 minutes, I was just sitting here watching going, Warriors are still going to win this game and probably win it comfortably, and they just never did. Sharks did enough, but what did the stats say?
Yeah, rightio. So we had 2 tries to 3, 2 out of 2 conversions for the Warriors, 2 out of 3 for the Sharks. 12-6 at half-time, 81% completion for the Warriors, 76% for the Sharks. 501 plus running metres for the Warriors, 5 line breaks to 4, 34 tackle busts to 19, 9 offloads to 5, 5 forced dropouts to 0, 334 tackles played, 367, 2 intercepts off the Warriors, 9 errors to 11, 1 ruck infringement against the Sharks. Supercoach points for Newell Blake with 103, Ronaldo with 87, and Talakai with 75.
Really?
Yes.
I imagine there's lots of tackle busts in here, I suppose.
And they both combined for the 2 tries that they scored.
That's true.
Down that left edge.
As I said, I
think the Warriors will be pretty disappointed, to be honest.
I agree.
I know the Sharks scrambled hard and they defended very well for the last hour of the match, considering how poorly they defended for the first sort of 10 or first 20. But not even the first 20. It was just that 10-minute period, sort of between the 10-minute mark and the 20-minute mark, where the Warriors had done everything right up until that point. They absolutely kicked the front door down. They were bashing it through the middle. Egan was getting out, getting involved. And then after about around that 10-minute mark, they really started shift side to side as well. So then they were really stretching the defence out. And then it came back to changes of angles, short passes in the middle of the field. You saw Metcalf step off his left and his left and his left and his right and carve back through the middle. Fanua Blake with the barge over in the middle. But they were really starting to just drop blokes in and under, like just changes of direction. And the Sharks' defence looked dismal there for about 10 minutes.
And even off their own line, they never looked like they were going to get back into that game until until almost just after half time. They started winning a wrestle briefly, but then there wasn't really a wrestle after that.
About 25 to 30 minutes in, there was 2 Sharks penalties given away, and then there was back-to-back line dropouts against the Sharks. And there was the short dropout. The second one, they went short. The first one, they went long. Second one, they went short. And the Sharks got the ball back. And that's when they really sort of picked up momentum for only about 10 minutes, but it was enough to get them down the other end and have Ramey and barge over from dummy half and score, which at 12-6, they would have been estatic going in at 12-6. It should have been 20 to 6 or 20-0, the way that first half played out. Like, as I said, they'd be pretty disappointed. They led everything. They led every stat just about you can think of. They were ahead with completions, run meters, line breaks, tackle busts, offloads, more forced dropouts. There's about 10 minutes of an arm wrestle, but they were well in front for most of that first half.
Losing Wade Egan didn't help.
No.
It took away a lot of those angles and where they were able to build off their forward pack. But they still had enough in the tank. And as I said, even through that back end of that game, when you were watching it, you just thought, okay, they're going to score at some point. Like, they have to score at some point. And it just never came.
But they went away from changing the angles in the middle of the field back to just sort of straight, hard-out running, which was enough to lay a platform. But then they started targeting the wrong people in defence for mine. Like, I understand them targeting Hines, but after there was about a 10-minute period where every second tackle they were running at him, and he was chopping them down most of the time. Like, he wasn't missing.
Yeah.
So then you start targeting somebody else. Like, you got to go and start looking somewhere else. But they just kept coming at him, and they just shortened up the defenders on either side of him because they knew exactly where they were running.
Yep.
Then they went the other side and tried to go with Talakai, and Talakai was sliding out to the wing, and Ronaldo was coming in, taking his spot in the centres, which sort of changed up that defensive structure there, and it made it a lot harder for him to break down that edge as well.
That, statistically, they only asked Talakai to make 4 tackles, and you'd think 8 tackles, and he missed 4.
As I said, a lot of the times he was sliding out, and Ronaldo was coming in and taking that centre position, and he was trailing in behind, which is probably not a bad way for him to defend, realistically, because it gives him a better chance of moving laterally and making a tackle rather than being stood up with his, squared up. But they missed a few tricks. Just I think they went away from just they went to we'll just get back in the game. We'll build the platform and we'll do all the simple things. Where I think if they'd thrown 1 or 2 more chances at them, a few more different angles and a few different lines in the running, they probably would have broken them open again.
Yeah, especially the last 10 minutes, there was just no urgency from Johnson. He was happy to have 2 repeat sets. I think even the last play of the game was a crash play to Ford.
No, they went out to the right edge for the last play, but it was
it was
close.
Pretty close to it. Sorry, that might have been resulted in the last dropout. Actually, now
I think it was the result of the last dropout.
Yeah. But there was nothing much happening into that set, and then Cronulla barely got out the half, and then it happened again. Happened again. I know, first week, but it was a far cry from the Sean Johnson we saw last year.
It was a far cry from the Sharks attacking setup that we saw last year as well. They were quite happy to go through the middle. We saw through their trials that's basically the only way they played. I think they've obviously set themselves a standard as this first few weeks of the year, we're just going through the middle, and we're going to train you guys to
match everyone else. Yeah.
You're going to match everyone else, if not better them, in the middle of the field, and then we're just going to work our backsides off. And when we get the opportunities, the ball will start zinging around again, I would imagine. But there was obviously the plan was set that they were taking the Warriors on the way that the Warriors wanted to play, which was a bit unusual. But
as a Sharks fan, end of the day, you've got to be happy to
I was delirious at the end of this game.
To win this game after being, you can't say comprehensively outplayed, but comprehensively out-physicaled at least.
Beaten twice last year by this side.
Yeah.
This team finished, fourth last year?
And game 1 to get the hoodoo of the
top 8,
top
one of the better teams, being able to beat them. And their defence was brilliant. There was periods there where they were just getting hammered for 10 or 15 minutes on their own line, and they just were able to turn them away. Even some of the little guys who were targeted, like Brayley, Jack Williams, Teague, the smaller sort of back rowers, just showed up time and time again. Niokora made a lot of covering tackles to shut down a few issues when players got into the backfield, and he was the one there to clean it all up. But yeah, to play that tough and get a win, that's probably the toughest win I think I've seen from the Sharks for 4 or 5 years. Easily. Yeah. Easily, possibly. Yeah, 5 or more years. It was fantastic. Trindle's defence obviously is much better than Moylan's, even though he did miss a couple. You can see that was a massive difference because they did go away from Trindle at different points. And Nico's defence was much better than it was last year. Like he would have fallen off about 15 tackles if he was playing at the back end of last season compared to what he did in this game.
Yeah.
Because you saw it at the back end of last year. He was missing sort of every 4th tackle.
Yeah.
Or at least being ineffective with it, and he wasn't. So
the Tribal Chief was absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely, he was.
Most run meters in 237 run meters, I think 40 tackles just in case. Part of a lot of that stuff through the middle when they were playing the
didn't look too
direction stuff.
Hampered with any problems either.
He was absolutely phenomenal in this game, so had to mention him. Just be interested how they grow into each other, really, because RTS didn't really get involved in that second half when they could have used him, maybe coming in and trying to have he always says he's usual dummy half runs, but trying to come in and get his hands a bit more on the ball, as from a 5'8" or first receiver point of view, or whether Metcalf pushes a pair wider at times, whatever it might be. You'd like to see just a couple more shots, and
RTS was solid without being brilliant.
Nothing wrong. He's good.
The big one for mine was the rotation of the Sharks forwards. it was around that 20-minute mark when shit started to go haywire that you saw the likes of Hazelton and Rudolph came on.
Yeah.
And they really made a huge difference with the defensive patterns in the middle of the field. Hazelton, and running the ball. Hazelton was massive running the ball. He was probably our best forward, ball in hand, realistically. And then he doesn't seem to miss many tackles either, which is obviously what you want. And Rudolph went through heaps of work defensively with McGuinness on one side and him on the other. But yeah, I think those two really changed the tempo of the game for about half an hour.
Yeah, and I think even Fitzgibbons mentioned it because we've called for Hazelton for a while, but that he's still half a work in progress in terms of a starting prop and whatever else. But very, very good asset. We loved him last year, and I think he's going to be better this year. So really good signs, I guess. Yeah, you probably just want to see both these have one more run and see how well the Sharks can,
you want to see,
as you say, play direct and possibly either come up with more points or outmatch a team.
Yeah, get the ball to those outside edges like they were last year and just burning teams on the outside. And do a little bit with... I would like to see them pop a few more offloads. There was probably a few opportunities there where they held the ball rather than sort of letting it go, but that probably comes back down to being round one, and Sharks were known for making a lot of errors last year as well, so probably something that you don't really want to do too much of.
It did start that way. There was
some
put early, so there's probably a very loud get them to pull their fucking heads in.
Yeah, you mentioned Tohu, who was brilliant. I thought Ford and Barnett were good, especially early in the match. Set up a good platform. Sean Johnson was pretty good, but sort of went through the motions at the back end. I thought Metcalf was one of their biggest attacking options. He looked very good running the ball. I think he'll be a perfect fit for them once they get going.
Yeah.
RTS Berry did a decent job. Tuapiki did as well, but at times seemed a little bit hesitant under the high ball and ringing the ball back. He sort of stopped in the line once or twice, but at other times accelerated through the line. So it's hard when you're that young playing in first grade. A few more opportunities for the outside backs would have helped the Warriors, but didn't come. Fanua Blake was the best player on the field by heads and shoulders. He was fucking destructive for most of the time he was out there.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. McGuinness, Williams were good. Brayley did a decent job. I thought Kafusi was pretty good in that first stint for the first 15 minutes or so.
Half a surprise that he started, but it was good.
Yeah, especially ball in hand. I mentioned Rudolph and Hazelton, good in limited minutes. But, Hines' defence and kicking was very good, but his attacking game sort of went out the window a bit. And Talakai and Ronaldo really changed in that sort of 20-minute period where they scored those 2 tries and they were working with each other out there. They changed the game, obviously. So.
Yeah. I was thinking Fanua Blake and Tohu 3 and 2. How we're going to divvy that up, but and you can come up with one of the Sharks players, which I assume is going to be Talakai.
I had Talakai for 2, and then I had either Tohu or Metcalf for the 1, but I'm happy to go with Tohu. But Talakai, he was when they would get off their own end, he was making some massive charges, playing as a front rower, like we said he does a lot of, and then obviously involved in both tries. The offload to Mulatalo, then to get up off the ground and catch it and put it down, and then he was the one who set Mulatalo up for the first try. So.
Well, he can have 2 and Tohu 1 then.
Yep.
Go with that. And get to Storm 8, Panthers 0. 0-2, as they were last year. Panthers, it all turned out all right in the end, but doesn't mean we can't completely overanalyze and worry about where the Panthers are heading for the next 20 minutes. So
this game absolutely killed my soul. Seriously, this was the hardest game of the weekend to watch. I know there was 2 talented teams out there and they were having a decent crack at each other, but it felt like periods of half an hour where just absolutely fucking nothing happened. Yeah. It just was hit up, kick the ball, hit up, kick the ball. And I'm just like, fucking, would one of you have a crack? And then Taylor May would make a break and get down there. And then somehow 4 Melbourne jerseys would turn up and they'd shut it down. It's just the amount of scramble they had to do, because Penrith were breaking them open at times.
The Melbourne scramble defence, and I didn't really... The Melbourne defence, whether it's the structures, whether it's just their sheer will, was incredible, especially that last 10 minutes. And even then, in that last 10 minutes, they're sitting there going, Panthers are going to win this game just to annoy me after all this. And because I did tip Melbourne. Yeah. And then you just felt they were going to jail, and they didn't.
There's just
and
always someone there at the right time,
Yeah.
or just in, even the bounce of the ball, it just seemed to go the wrong way for Penrith and end up in the Storm players' hands. But we had 1 try to 0, obviously 1 out of 1 conversions for the Storm, and 1 out of 1 penalty attempts. 2-0 at halftime, 68% completion, played 74%, 182 plus running metres for Penrith, and 60 plus post-contact metres for Penrith, or 59. 1 line break to 3, 22 tackle busts to the Storm, 32 to Penrith, 9 offloads to 23. I can't remember Penrith throwing 23 offloads in a game before, but anyway, not recently.
a lot of them would keep going. A lot of them would have been their centres.
115 plus kicking metres for the Melbourne Storm side, 4 forced dropouts from Penrith, 339 tackles played, 344, 16 errors to 12. 6 penalties conceded to 9, 4 ruck infringements against the Storm, 1 against Penrith. Isaiah Yeo with 67 Supercoach points, May with 67 Supercoach points, and Katoa with 66.
Yeah, where do you start with this game? It was never.
It was a round 1 game of football. Nobody wanted to fuck up.
I was going to say it was almost like both teams were scared to blink.
They were petrified of making a mistake because they know how much the other team can hurt them. So they did not want to do anything out of the ordinary for large chunks of this game. And, it became a hard watch at different times, to be honest. Both sides had some exciting moments, but Penrith probably had their noses in front for a big part of this game and just, for whatever reason, could not crack this Melbourne team.
Well, especially the last 20, it just felt inevitable Penrith's going to win this. Similar to the Warriors game, just felt inevitable Penrith's going to come up with these points at some point and carry on, and off we go. But once again, there wasn't a trick shot. There was their complete go-to play is Yeo through the middle for Cleary. And they tried that plenty.
To the outside,
sweep to the outside, or
kick in and around the posts, or kick
try
to
and
the
get
centre.
or get to their centres, or try and get with their centres isolated so they can beat someone 1-on-1. And Melbourne had it covered. Right the way through.
They couldn't control May though. They were lucky he didn't tear them apart at different times. So many times he just stood up the bloke in front of him and went past him, or held him off and went for 15, 20 metres looking for supports, and that just never arrived. But
and apparently he's just signed a
extension,
$750K extension, which is very interesting given they had arguably the best centre in the comp leave last year.
Mm-hmm.
That probably could have taken similar money, but
he was red hot the year before. Obviously,
he was absolutely. Good luck to him. This is
22 tries in 17 games or whatever it was.
It has to say something in a team like this. They're happy to put that much investment into. Him.
100%. He hasn't really put a foot wrong since he's come into first grade. So unfortunately, out all last year, but he looked bigger too. He looked markedly bigger. Like he's put on 15 kilos of muscle bigger.
I think he's one. I think
throwing blokes around.
Reading that he's on a carnivore diet. So it's just protein and working out. So I think
it's definitely had an effect because
I was reading it somewhere. I don't
he
know.
was just
There's a group of them doing it,
holding blokes up, and every time he hit the line, he was bending it, if not breaking through the other side. And the obstruction call, obviously there'd be plenty of Penrith fans going, what about the obstruction? They took a try off us.
Yeah.
Another one that, to the letter of the law, I guess, has to be given.
Yeah. I didn't have a massive... Well, I did.
Could have been
the other way. But
in previous years, probably would have been given a try.
It wasn't the worst thing I saw all weekend, and that's all relative, I think, when we get to some other games. But, yeah, I understand that. But Penrith still had ample opportunity to win. They trying to think of some highlights. Melbourne, Kamakamika was good. Walsh was they were both good through the middle, matching Leota and Fish for large chunks. I guess it was
Meaney and Coates were probably the best of their back five. Coates looked pretty good under the high ball for the majority of the game, which has obviously been one of his big parts to his game.
Yeah.
He looked pretty fit, which is something, obviously. Because he has been a little bit behind the pace at times during the last probably 2 seasons. Grant was good. Josh King was fantastic, I thought, in the middle of the field. He did a pretty damn good job. And Katoa was their best forward. He was the only one that really looked like sort of opening up holes on that edge. But Jerome Hughes' kicking game was another game that was dominated by kicking, and I think when they were on the back foot, he some really decisive kicks to get the ball down the other end of the field, which really helped them. And then obviously the kick, which was the assist for the try.
Yeah.
So.
The thought I had the other day as well about Penrith. You mentioned Coates in the air. Excuse me. Matt. Yeah, there's a sneeze coming at some point, everyone.
Yep.
Anyway,
Very good.
they Penrith now
Don't
have
really have that threat.
two short wingers, and I know they had them last year. I know they're fine, but I think at some point this year it's going to, and it wasn't here too much. There was a try as a result. Stephen Crichton is a freak in the air.
Absolutely.
And I think he shut down and smothered a lot of what happened, a lot of those crossfield kicks. So now they're going to have to find someone else.
Well, you got
help
May,
Edwards
generally
out.
not great. And
That's what I mean. There's not a noted jumper. I know Edwards is fine.
But he's also got to run that extra 10 metres to get up
Exactly.
with the line.
Whereas I
unless
think
it's
if
set
you
up
were to go
for
back and look, and this is, I'm sure someone smarter than me can go do it, or with access to the footage, you could go back and look at how many times Crichton cut down aerial threats.
Yep.
I'm sure there was many over the last 3 years. And I
Yeah,
can
I
see it
definitely
coming
wouldn't be
where-
surprised where
And I know last year we were at games, we watched plenty of them.
they were able
had
to
catch
scramble,
every
get
single
into the
ball,
right
but
spot.
Crossfield bombs all of a sudden are going to be a problem for Penrith, I think, this year. And as I said, the try came from one here. So that was the first one. The second one I was sort of baffled about. I know he hasn't had any preseason, but what Jerome Lowe was doing in this game. There were moments in attack he was just standing out in the back of play, watching it happen, literally
that's
just standing there.
Massive question going forward.
And I'm not just saying he was excluded because, again, he hasn't been through pre-season. Well, he did train with them, but, geez, it felt like
There was times he looked uninterested.
there was, I don't want to use the word uninterested, but he just wasn't part of it. So I suppose, yeah, he wasn't uninterested. He went looking for a couple. He did his usual little shimmy, shake and pass to someone else. But there was, even that last 5 minutes when they probably needed him, and in 2022 he probably would have won in the game, and he was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, well, generally every set of six, he pops up at least once.
Yeah.
Having a crack at the line or trying to draw in a defender and push a pass. And there was a couple of sets in a row where you didn't see.
No, but you saw him. He was standing 5 metres behind the attacking line, and I was baffled by that. So there's a few questions. As I said, I'm not going to freak out about Penrith. Just
They were probably still the better side for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
So
Physically, similar to the Warriors, physically should have won the game, but didn't. Anyone else you want to talk about here? Or?
Not particularly. I gave May my 3 points. I thought he looked the most dangerous player on the field. I gave Hughes the 2 purely through his kicking game and the setting up the try there. And then I had Isaiah Yeo for the 1 because he worked his absolute ring out, as he does every week.
He's incredible. I think he's 70 Supercoach points, all base.
All base stats, yeah. All
base
tackles, a couple of offloads and tackle busts. I think he had like 8 or 9 tackle busts, which is...
So he was actually... I had him for 3, but I'm not going to deny you Taylor May either. So let's end given...
I'll give him 2 and give Hughes 1.
No, I'll give him Melbourne 1 before I should give Hughes 2.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You right to get going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, 26-8. Saturday kicked off with the Parramatta Eels beating the Bulldogs. Stats.
We had 4 tries to 2, 4 out of 4 conversions, and 2 missed conversions from the Bulldogs. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for Parramatta, 14-0 at half-time, 89% completion, played 72%, 510 plus running metres and 247 plus post-contact metres for Parramatta. Probably the most dominant performance of the weekend through the middle of the field. 4 line breaks to 3, 29 tackle busts to 23, 16 offloads from Parramatta. One thing I did really like seeing from Parramatta in this game, which we've spoken about for about 2 years. But anyway, 3 offloads for the Dogs, 4 forced dropouts to 2, 1 40-20 from Parramatta. Very good timely kick as well. Done perfectly. 265 tackles played, 399. 25 ineffective tackles from the Bulldogs, which is one that sort of stood out that I don't normally mention. 4 errors to 13, 7 penalties conceded to 7, 3 ruck infringements against the Bulldogs. Bryce Cartwright with 116 Supercoach points, Wilson with 72 and Gutherson with 66.
It was... Firstly, I'll say Cirilo after the game said something along the lines of he was proud of their defensive effort, and I've got to say, fair enough, because it was total domination. It was over 60% possession as well. And in round 8, if Parramatta produce this, they win by 50 or 60.
Probably.
So they stuck in. That said, Parra did what they do, given Moses was on one leg. And
Moses was on one leg for, 50 minutes of the game.
And he would be the one normally that would start taking the piss.
Absolute passenger for the last 50 minutes.
So I suppose you take him off the table. But you've already hit the nail on the head. First time in 2 years we've seen offloads and seen changes of play.
Nice offloads
and
too.
Paulo looking for RCG or looking for another outside back.
Looking for a trailing centre or a half back through the middle.
Which is when they play
difference.
well. And going back to 2022 is one of the keys to their game, and it was great to see it back.
Cartwright popped a couple, but Paulo for mine was a big one because heard a stat during the week that generally most hit-ups you average 9 metres, basically straight up hit up through the middle. Yeah. You throw an offload in, it goes to 19.
Wow.
Like, that's fucking massive. That's 2 hit-ups in a row. That's you do that twice a set, you've made almost half the field. And,
makes sense.
Whereas you would have only made 20 metres, and that's a big thing, especially for a team that 2 years ago when they were in the grand final were one of the better offloading teams. Like they got it right the majority of the time, and a lot of those blokes are still here.
Yeah, and in fairness, such
made
a stop
huge
start.
Difference.
No ICG for chunks last year, no Lane all year. So
obviously, injuries and suspensions were a big issue for Parramatta last year.
But I liked what I saw. I thought it was good, and without having to really push further into a deeper gear, or missing Moses.
Yeah, 100%.
So. All very,
but
very
that second phase play just made it a lot easier for them. Like
relying on that, they create so much space with it.
Yeah,
and that's what makes Moses dangerous, because he can just pop up and be off and gone before people realise.
But yeah, you look at that stat. The offloads just make the power game twice as effective.
Yeah,
realistically, if you're getting them right, it just it makes it twice as easy for them to do what they do really well through the middle of the field.
Absolutely. I guess the two you've already mentioned, Paul, him and Cartwright were the two I was really going to single out that I noted that noticeably were great. And Cartwright did have a very strong last year.
It's a pretty scrappy match. There was a lot of errors and penalties and just dumb shit in and around the ruck, which I think both teams were getting a bit niggly there at different times with each other.
Not like Reed to do that.
Especially the Dogs. Obviously, it doesn't help when you are getting pretty well pressured for big parts of the game.
Yeah.
But that first 20 minutes really kicked Parramatta into gear. Like that dominance through the middle of the field really let them just go through the motions for the last sort of half an hour of the game, and that's when they, the Dogs did come back in that last 20 minutes, and they put on a brilliant try with the kick-out offload back to Crichton for that try. That was very nicely done. And they were probably the better team for the last 15 minutes or so, but Parramatta obviously did clock off a lot towards the back end of the game, especially with the physicality stakes. They just sort of were making tackles rather than hitting and driving like they were early.
I can't remember the last time I saw a game where no forward made 100 metres for Bulldogs. But no one in the field made 100 metres back there, part of the back three. And Kurt Mann, sorry.
Parra took a few chances. They probably bombed a couple as well, which could have made the score a bit bigger. Dogs just played too sideways. Like, they knew they were getting well and truly beaten in the middle, and they had no way of changing it, so they tried to get on the outside of Parramatta, who just up and slid, which I mentioned in the trials, which is different to what they have been doing, which has been up and in and getting beaten on the outside edges. They were up and holding or up and sliding, and they did make a bit of a difference until the back end of the game. So,
but it was the exact concern we had with Canterbury, that we know, and individually, some very, very good workers, very, very good footballers, but there's not the size that's going to match a pack like Parra.
And the only guy that they had, which is what?
To have, similar to Newcastle, you have like the likes of Salmon, who looks like he's bulked up, who looks looked fit and everything. Kurt Mann and Preston on the field at the same time. They're not blokes that are going to barge the front door down.
And they only give 20 minutes or 5 minutes to Sam Hughes or whatever it was, who didn't cover himself in glory, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Max King's a smaller forward, but he was their best by a mile. And Foa Silly did pretty much 3/5 to fuck all for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and he's the biggest guy they've got.
Yeah.
Which is obviously to their detriment. As we mentioned, Tedovano, now they don't get him into this squad, who was a bigger body, and now done his knee and looks like he's going to be out for the season. So they really need one or two bigger units in the middle, and we've been saying that for a long time.
I watched a fair chunk of the reserve grade, and I can't even think of anyone.
There will be.
Jumped out.
They will get some teams. They will get on the outside of some teams, and they've got some skill and pace out wide that will be enough to, get them close and win them a few games. But until they really lock down that middle, there's still a lot of issues for the Dogs.
And kind of Tracy name this week, what you talk about straightening up attacks, it's what he does very well, but doesn't help when he's standing on the wing.
Playing at centre, but probably so.
Exactly. So we'll see how that. And maybe Carraz ends up out there. I don't know.
Taff had little involvement.
Liam Knight play reserve grade again. I see he's the only other bigger body, but it wasn't fantastic. Ran a few minutes.
That's right. They did grind a little bit towards the back end of the game, but that was through your workers like your Kings, your Hughes, your Preston, who was fantastic again. He was very good. But Wilson was really good, and Carraz, they did a lot of dirty work out of the back end, which they haven't been known for previously. Well, Carraz has, but they need probably another one of those, one or two of those blokes doing that as well. They were best of the back five. Kickout had some nice touches, but was nowhere near involved enough. One of those big bodies who could break down an edge, but if they're not getting it out of the middle, it makes it hard. It might be worth throwing him in there for 10 minutes when the chips are down and just go, mate, can you just be a battering ram for 10 minutes and we're going to put you back in the edge? Like, it's just fucking absolutely rip in. But just because he is that bit of a bigger body. Man had a couple of nice touches off the bench, but again, not a lot of opportunities. Preston and King and Curran. Actually, Curran ripped in. He had a pretty good go as well. So Curran, King and Preston were the Dogs' best players, I thought.
Yeah. Anyone else from the Eels?
Well, Gutho and Penasini were fantastic ball in hand. Gutho played a good part at halfback as well, especially when they were trying pressing with the running game and trying to run into the line. Gutho came in and took a lot of that off Moses, obviously, with the groin injury, and I thought he was fantastic at doing that. Moses was very good early, looked very sharp until, obviously, the twinge went. Yeah. He could have had an absolute night out, I think, if his groin doesn't go in this game. Brown took over after that point and did a pretty good job, I thought, running the ball there. Brown and Lussick were decent in the middle of the field. Maddo was okay. We gave big reps to Paulo earlier. Some good offloads. RCG jumped in there as well. Hopgood was one of their best, but it was the Bryce Cartwright show.
It was.
Like, he looked dangerous every time the ball went near him. You could see the defence was panicking after about 15 or 20 minutes because they didn't know what he was going to do. Not that he did a lot different. Like, there was an offload popped here or there at a little grubber, but he's still working so much harder than he was 18 months ago.
It's amazing what can be said for a good mental state, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll leave it at that.
His last 12 months were career best. Even back with Penrith when he burst onto the scene, I reckon last year was even better than that. And he's kicked off just as good to start this year.
And just has every asset. Like, can
big,
catch
tall,
cross-field kicks, can stand up and hold three blokes and offload.
Pace.
Like you said, decent grubber.
Taller than most blokes, so he can get over the top of tackles and pop those offloads. Not scared to dig into the line and take a hit if he has to, and can ball play a little bit as well. So, and his defence has improved massively. That was a big knock on him there for a couple of years. Like, he was basically a turnstile there for a bit.
Literally.
But now he is his defence is heaps better. So, starting off again with the best game of the year, obviously, but he could be better as well. So it's scary, really.
3 points for him, 2 for Paulo, 1 for Gutho. Or you go somewhere else?
Yeah, no, that's what I had. I had either King or Gutho, but I thought Max King did heaps of work. But
fuck him.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Saturday, the feature Saturday was 28-4. The Dragons put the absolute cleaners through the Titans. It took a while to warm up, I suppose, but once they did, the Titans we're not even in the same ballpark for the back half hour of this, but what the stats say, and
Yeah, it was, 4-6 at half time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, they're just noticing, completely random. Good crowds all weekend.
Yes.
Bankwest was sold out. Was nearly 15,000 here, and
Auckland was sold out.
Auckland sold out. There'll be a sellout at Bluebet coming for the Western Derby, as there always is. So,
You would imagine so.
yeah, very good start. Anyway.
1 try for the Titans, 5 for the Dragons. Missed conversion attempt for the Titans, 4 out of 5 for the Dragons. 83% completion, played 78%. 260 plus running metres for the Dragons. 1 line break to 6. 17 tackle busts to 19. 2 offloads to 10. 1 forced dropout for the Titans, 3 for the Dragons. 381 tackles, played 317. 10 errors to the Titans, 14 to the Dragons. 3 penalties conceded to 5. 3 ruck infringements to 1. 2 inside the 10 for the Titans and 3 for the Dragons. Lomax with 108 Supercoach points, Sloan with 103, and Raymond Fatala Mariner with 86.
Good too.
Fucking brilliant.
Yep. Yeah, where do you want to start here? Well, this was very interesting viewing after a afternoon out and about.
What did I write down here? Holy snapping duck shit. We noticed an absolute definite lift in the intensity from the Dragons, especially through the middle of the field, which has been non-existent for about two to 3 years.
Yeah.
Defensive structures were completely different.
Yeah.
There was no blokes charging out of the line and leaving massive holes. They were working together consistently for the entirety of the game. They were putting on some big shots as well at different times to shut down any attack that the Titans threw, which was very little. But there was like blokes like Sully and Bird were just jamming blokes and smacking them into, putting them on their back. The forwards were fantastic with their intensity, which, we have not seen for such a long time for this Dragon side. And it basically came down to that. The Titans lost the plot towards the back end of the game, especially defensively. But that just came off the back of a consistent, ferocious effort from the Dragons. They just were not going to be stopped. Their attitude was completely different to anything we've seen recently.
I didn't give this a heap of thought. I have liked the idea of it because I've got in my Supercoach team, Jack Bird and the Sanders, but the way they've set up now is almost like double back rowers on both sides. And as you say, just coming in and really cleaning up blokes. And from all reports, basically Flanagan came in and gave them all home truths and said,
well, they look as
this is all where you're at. You've got to wake up yourselves.
To a man, they look 10 times fitter than what they did last year.
Yes.
The whole squad. Like, you look at Sully, he's dropped probably 20 kilos and he's put on muscle, and Bird looks fitter than he did at times last year. That whole forward pack is like, they've all slimmed down. Francis Molo came out and played one of his better games that we've seen out of him for a long time. DeBellin worked his backside out. Like, a huge amount of effort and physicality, which you do not associate with the Dragons. Flanagan's obviously gone in there and read the riot act and got most of them on board by the looks of things, if not all of them.
Like you say, home truths, riot act, that sort of thing. But basically, I mean, said, look, you're going nowhere. The only way out of getting out of this is we all roll our sleeves up and work together. And like I said, I really like some of those structures around both. And then in attack, same thing. Hasn't rewritten anything massive yet, but just put people in better spots where they're going to perform. I think is the way to sum it up. Two running halves, and didn't see a great deal of anything special out of Flanagan, but come up with a try.
Couple of nice little short kicks. Hunt was the controller of the majority of it, but you did see Flanagan play probably more of a 7 role, and Hunt play that little bit wider, which gave him a little bit more time and obviously took a bit of pressure off him, whereas Flanagan was the one that was taking those bumps that Hunt normally has to take from the forwards charging in and hitting the front, the first receiver. So, it freed him up a little bit there. Stewart and Fatala Mariner absolutely cooked the edges of this Titans side. They put them under the blowtorch for 20, 30 minutes and were running as hard as anybody that I saw in this first week of football. And they were terrorising the outside backs and the back rowers from the Titans. And most of them didn't want much to do with it after about 20 minutes. Fatala Mariner was just popping offloads all over the place, busting people, pushing people around, and Sewell was doing exactly the same on the left edge. And then you add in Sully, Rava, who came in for a couple of hit-ups. Jack Bird did more work than I think on the ball than I've seen out of him for a long time. He was just charging. And as you said, they had like a double up of back rowers on both sides. The four of them went to town on the outside edges of the Titans' defence.
Yeah, ticks all across. Even Jacob Little, who we obviously know very well, but one of his better games of first grade, I thought. And,
it's amazing what happens to a hooker when you're on the front foot and rolling through the middle of the field. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Any shining lights for this Titans team? I thought the defensive, we'll talk about defensive structure. Once they got bashed out of it, their second half was woeful.
They're out there again. The centres and wingers just seem to turn the wrong way when they when they need to. Don't seem to think about what they're doing in defence. AJ was their shining light. He looked like the only bloke who was going to break open the attack at any time, and defended quite well as well.
Yeah.
Put in a lot of effort and probably didn't get noted stat-wise or Supercoach or any of that kind of stuff as much as he probably deserved. He was very good for them. Mo and Tino did their shift in the middle of the field. They were held comfortably. Like the Dragons held them pretty well, but they didn't do anything bad or anything wrong. They had a really good go in the middle of the field. They just didn't have any help because that bench rotation for the Titans was absolute rubbish.
Well, the thing is, you would imagine Des Hasler would have gone up there and done exactly what Flanagan's done and said, look, we're only getting out of this by working hard, backing each other, being fair, da-da-da-da-da. And then they've come up against each other and just been completely owned. And I wonder if it's a wake-up call in their own little world or whether it was always on the cards or whether the Dragons have improved that much. They've now put two.
They have improved a lot.
They're a different team to last year. I think that's the way you got to treat it. And maybe you got to say that performance against the Tigers wasn't exclusively. But that said, that Tigers pack had no part of the physicality either in that game.
No, that's right. So it'll be interesting when they do come up against a team that's going to fire back and really have a crack back at them through the middle of the field. But it is only round one, but we haven't seen that level of intensity and desire for 5-10 years for out of the Dragons.
Not from the Dragons, no.
No. Haas had a really good game. Probably one of his better games in first grade. Cleese Haas got through a mountain of work and looked like he was going to break the line once or twice on his bench forwards. But, yeah, as I said, their rotation is what killed them. As soon as Tino and Mo went off for a rest, they just fell apart. The middle of the field was completely cooked.
Yep.
I mentioned most of these Dragons already, but we'll go back through. Hunt and Flanagan were good at what they needed to do. Jack DeBellin and Molo really set a platform in the middle of the field. Both the Molos, actually. As their pillars in the middle, they did a great job. You mentioned Little Eisenhuth. Fuck, he did some work.
Yep.
He was every time the ball sort of was on the ground, he was the closest one to it. Every time there was a cover tackle that needed to be made, he seemed to be in the right position to make it. Had huge amounts of effort, and we mentioned what was good with the outside backs. Lomax was fantastic.
What's that? Probably I'd say so.
As a minimum, it's probably not bad.
Yeah.
But
8 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Anyway.
We had a little intrusion there. Sorry about that, guys. But, as I said, the forwards were tremendous. In the outside backs, Lomax had one of his best games I've ever seen out of him. 250 running metres, tries and try assists, and he looked every bit involved. Talks today, apparently Parramatta's asked if he wants out of his contract.
Wow.
Which his manager has gone to the club about, and Flanagan said we'll talk about it next year. So
okay. I had seen that, and that wasn't it. Yeah, I saw something about the article, and it wasn't to replace Gutho. It was to come in as a...
No, it was coming as the centre. Playing the centres, and Lomax was interested, but Flanagan basically said, you're here until next year. We can talk about the last 2 years of your deal then.
Okay.
So obviously, if it's not mutually agreed upon, then it can't happen. But
I would also suggest Flanagan will back himself to
look
get
what
the
he did with
Dragons
Hunt.
to a state. No, get the Dragons to a state where he can get players again,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you go, well, I can brush someone on 800 now and go and get
But even Ben Hunt,
someone else. Yeah.
you know, like Ben Hunt was 80% chance of leaving last year before Flanagan became involved in that club, and now he's talking about playing out the last 2 years of his contract. So interesting, interesting times ahead. But yeah, I thought Lomax was a player of the game. So much involvement, created opportunities for himself and other players, and I had him with 3 points. I gave Fatala Mariner the 2. I thought he was tremendous on that right edge with what he did. Both defensively and in attack, and you have to give Sloan a point. I wanted to give him 2 for the hat trick and what he did, but I think without the other 2, that none of that comes
Capitalised on a lot
about.
of good work more than really, creating anything himself.
But a fantastic game for Sloan. One of probably close to his best game as a first grader as well. And if that continues, then it's looking pretty positive for the Dragons.
Was it 2 or 3 years ago now? Probably 3 years ago. That streak with him and Amone
4
were
or 5 games. Yeah.
red hot when they had a little run there, but that was a long, long time ago now. I hope he gets his chest up and his chin out and takes something out of the game.
Yep.
As will all the Dragons, and I think fantastic, great start for all of them. Sunday we just had the one here, and it opened with a flurry, 43-18 Cowboys over the Dolphins. I got this one wrong, but anyway, actually, I didn't know what to do in this one, but
I tipped the Cowboys on the show, and then for some reason my footy tips showed that I tipped the Dolphins. So anyway, I did that a few times last year as well.
I'll own up here and say that I only saw the 20-minute version of this because I was out for UFC and hadn't had time to catch up yet, but Bowen did watch it all.
You didn't miss a huge amount, to be honest.
I feel like I saw what I needed to saw out of the
out of the highlights.
So,
There was a lot of good stuff out of the Cowboys and some not so good stuff out of the Dolphins for big parts of the game. We had 3 tries to 7, 3 out of 3 conversions played, 7 out of 7. 1 out of 1 field goal attempts for the Cowboys, 31-12 at half-time, with the Cowboys leading. 77% completion played, 88%. 537-plus running metres and 164-plus post-contact metres for the Cowboys. 4 line breaks to 7, 19 tackle busts to 24, 6 offloads to 10. 1 forced dropout for the Cowboys, 377 tackles for the Dolphins, 312 for the Cowboys. 2 intercepts for the Cowboys, 10 errors to 8, 5 penalties conceded to 3. 2 ruck infringements from both teams, 1 inside the 10 against the Dolphins, 3 against the Cowboys. Supercoach points, Holmes with 108, Labutt with 103, Tuolagi with 101.
Well, this all happened very quickly to start the game.
Yeah, huge physical effort from the Cowboys. They looked fit, strong. They looked fairly well connected as well in the back line, which was something completely different from most of the games that they played last year. Chad got in there and was doing his distribution role, and Dearden was getting involved, and the outside backs had a field day at different times during the game. The centres were causing absolute chaos for the Dolphins. Tessinu got turned inside out that many times. I don't think he knows where he is.
Looks like the size of that. How big is he? Looked like Ben Murdoch-Masala when he walked in the field. He was enormous.
But Labutt left him that confused at the end of this game that he didn't know what was going on. He stepped in with the right foot, the left foot, stepped in with both feet, throwing dummies, and the bloke was just staring at him. Who throws a fucking flick pass dummy with the ball in the back of your wrist to the fullback and score the first try of the game? It's just fucking outrageous.
Yeah, outstanding.
I was fucking filthy too because I had him in my Supercoach team and took him out at the last minute to save $100,000, and it fucking cost myself 100 points.
He wasn't the only one. Don't worry, you weren't alone this in the last 3 weeks.
Oh, fuck me. Anyway, yeah, how the hell you throw that kind of dummy? And his pace and footwork is tremendous. He's just so balanced as a runner. He looks like an absolute good in that guy. He looks like he's going to have a very long career, whether it's still at the Cowboys or wherever, what the NRL is these days.
Well, that's true.
Could end up in 7 different clubs.
I suggest, given this how well their backline is now or looking, there might be at least one player and lots of money that may not be there in the coming years anyway. That'll free up some.
Pace, footwork, and And pretty strong young fella as well. And they did this without Drinkwater. Drinkwater barely fired a shot in this game, and they tore this Dolphins team apart. The Hammer got credited for 2 errors. I reckon he made about 5 in the first 15 minutes. And then you could probably add another 5 to it somewhere along the game. He made that many mistakes, it wasn't funny.
And like I said, I don't think they've counted his little kick away
for the Lukey try.
As an error.
Yeah.
They've counted that as a
try assist
something
for
else.
the Cowboys.
Something else. 2 errors, 2 handling errors according to NRL.com.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
I reckon that you could double those stats and you're still probably a bit behind. But Dearden looked, impressive. He looked fit. He he was really wanted to get involved in this game. And the captaincy seemed to suit him. He was doing a lot more talking than you normally see out of him. So that can only be a positive for the direction that they want to head in. Lemuelu, injury hurt. He was going quite well up until he dislocated his kneecap and done his PCL or MCL or whatever he's done now, and it's going to be out for a while. Add that to Tom Gilbert, who's poor bloke's had a blood clot as well now apparently, so that's put his surgery back another 3 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the best to him trying to get back on the field. Holmes was brilliant as well. He was just beating blokes on the outside, throwing flick passes to Tuolangi, who cashed in with a couple of nice tries down the outside there. They were just completely outplayed. Like Sullivan seemed to lose his way. The longer the game went, the more confused he seemed to be of where they were going, what they were doing. Nicarima tried his best, but had a few errors trying to set blokes up on the outside edges. But they got dominated in the middle of the field. It was that 1-2 punch with Cotter. Robson got out and did a whole heap of terrorising in and around the ruck, and then you'd have one of the front rowers charging onto the ball, and then they'd hit Nanai or Lukey on an edge, and they just pulled the defence to pieces from one side of the field to the other, and the outside backs absolutely cashed in.
Yeah, very, very good up-tempo signs is what we wanted, to see that old energy Cowboys.
Expected that last year, yeah.
And just they never really hit that gear, but this is a fantastic start from Dolphins. Josh Kerr was someone that there's a lot of mail about that he'd been training the house down, and Bennett liked him. He did a pretty good job coming on, having to cover some minutes there. And Flegler was okay.
Yeah,
for
did
his
decent
debut.
jobs. Probably close to their better forward on the field.
But the concern we had was the back end of this year for these ageing forwards. And if they drop the first 4 or 5, well, the back end of the year might come very, very quickly. Because it just felt that way. It felt like they never were going to get any wrestle back into this game.
No, 100%. Their forwards were pretty well covered in most positions. You mentioned the best 2, which was Flegler and Kerr. Lemuelu would have made a bit more of a difference.
Yeah.
Plath was pretty good coming off the bench, but other than that, Nichols did what he does. But yeah, they were pretty well outplayed, and their outside backs never really got a chance. The halves never gave them enough ball. Well, I don't think they really touched the ball for big parts of the game. The Cowboys just kept scoring tries and getting them back and going and scoring another one. So makes it difficult.
How are you going to give these points, Val, for 3?
I had Labert for 3.
Okay.
I thought a lot of the stuff he did was off his own bat, and just the way he was able to stand up. I know the defence against him probably didn't help, but the way he was able to stand up, Tessineau beat it pretty much every time he ran at him. And then, I had Holmes for 2 and Dearden the 1.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to go with that. I'll follow you there. So, I guess the obvious ones are stocks, you sort of, or rising stocks, for lack of a better term, Dragons and Cowboys.
Yep.
From what we saw last year.
100%.
And you'd say, and Canberra to a lesser extent.
Sharks and Warriors still holding. Sharks probably a little bit of upside there with just the grit and determination that they put in, but they're a hold. And then you're looking at the Titans and the Dolphins that you probably don't really want to be holding too many stocks in. And the Dogs, we knew where they were sort of at, and they're going to have to prove themselves in the middle of the field before you're going to be going out of your way to tip them too often.
Yes, we have to. Just on the path home now, you've got a pot plan of the week to kick us off.
Go straight to the pot plan. Okay, so I had 2, and we're going to go back a week because they were both they're going to both in the Vegas games. To be honest, I'm only going to go with the one. Ezra made a lot of made 8 missed tackles, 3 errors, but did a lot of work with the ball in hand. So the 160 metres, running metres probably cancels that out a little bit for mine. But it's one of my favourites. It's Lachlan Ilias.
Okay.
The bloke looked like he couldn't make a tackle. I don't know how he only got credited with 4 missed tackles because there was a lot more than that, I would imagine. Never got himself into the game, put in a few nice kicks, but he also made an error and just did not look like... He looked the least like a first grader out on the field in that game of football for mine.
It's hard to argue. I'm going to say Richie Kenner. He was shown... He did score a try, I know, but... the back end of that game, he was completely outclassed in an attack there. He wasn't moving left nor right at times. So we'll leave it at that for now. Have you got a slap of the week?
Oh, it has to be Spencer. It couldn't be anybody else. There's a few guys I wanted to say, obviously, lift your game, but in outwardly going and doing that in the showcase over in Vegas, it's just not accepted anymore. You can't talk to people that way, and especially when there's microphones around and you're on television. So I think he's got the 8-week slap, and hopefully he learns a few lessons.
And a bonus slap from me, the Greyhound New South Wales staff member that decided to make a joke about it in last night's form guide that went out to a few betting agencies. So
yes,
not the smartest thing he's done. Just something different. I'm gonna slap the Titans because I half hoped for something better from them, and I have concerns. We'll leave it at that. I'm going to salute, first of all, finish on a good one. I'm going to salute Shane Flanagan for getting the Dragons up and going, at least for now. We're only one round in, but he's doing something right. Must have half an idea. And the Melbourne Storm defence. Their defence, whoever their defensive coach is now, a few of them have come and gone. But their structure is fantastic. Their commitment's outstanding. And to go 23 or 4 years now, undefeated in round one. Wow. Who have you got?
There's a whole heap of centres you could pick from. Val, Labour, Lomax on the wing.
For centres, yeah.
But mine's Joey, going back again to last week.
Yeah.
Joey Manu was absolutely brilliant. Every time he touched the ball, looks like an absolute threat. I was tossing up between him and Tedesco, actually, because Tedesco looked twice the player than what he did last year. But
and as I said last week, I don't think that was nowhere near what he can do this year, Teddy. So.
Joey Manu was belting blokes in defence. And, there's another gear there as well. Like, he didn't absolutely completely rip the game apart, but every time he touched the ball, they were scrambling. Yeah, he did go pretty close.
Put it this way, if he was playing the Titans this week, he would have. So
yeah, but he was absolutely brilliant. He was my salute of the week, Joey Manu.
Very good. We got anything you want to finish on, Mark? Was that our review?
No, I think we're done.
Got to plug our rugby league merch and go buy some of our gear there. Lovely hats. It's there, hats and shirts and whatnot. Leave us some feedback below. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us some comments. Tell us what you think about all of it. And we will be back momentarily, or at least in another show, to preview what's up in round 2. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk very soon.